Shame.
By the end of the lecture, I felt and knew that something within me had changed. This time irreversibly. Whites henceforth would no longer be superior. Blacks, most important, I, myself, would no longer be inferior.
That was the late journalist Les Payne speaking about the first time he went to hear Malcolm X. Payne's biography of the civil rights activist, The Dead Are Arising, recently won the National Book Award. Tomorrow is the 56th anniversary of Malcolm X's assassination here in New York. Just yesterday, noted civil rights attorney Benjamin Crump announced that he has new evidence on the killing to be revealed at a news conference later today. Like his subject, author Les Payne did not live to see his life's work finished. He died in 2018. But his chief researcher, his daughter, Tamara, stepped in to carry his work across the finish line. I sat down with her and some other Payne family members to discuss the importance of this biography and why Les Payne was the only man who could have written it.
He was a postcard writer.
He was a writer. He was a letter writer.
Touring the Schoenberg Center for Research in Harlem last month,
This is his notebook entry.
Tamara Payne and I are among the first inside an exhibit that includes the personal mementos of Malcolm X.
He kept a journal during all of his times traveling.
They're great sources for you.
Exactly.
Those writings and interviews from friends and family shaped The Dead Are Arising, the book she co-wrote with her late father, journalist Les Payne.
You have Alex Haley's autobiography. You have a Pulitzer Prize-winning book by a Columbia historian. What does Les Payne's book tell us that those didn't?
When Dad met Malcolm's brothers and his other siblings, Malcolm becomes even more alive.
We must be prepared to defend ourselves, or we will continue to be a defenseless people at the mercy of a ruthless and violent racist mob.
Payne sat down with his immediate family, classmates, former ministers with the Nation of Islam, even a man who infiltrated Malcolm's organization for the NYPD to tell a story that begins before Malcolm Little was even born.
Malcolm is in utero, Louise is pregnant, and Earl Little is organizing families in a local town, and the local chapter of the Klan rides upon the family to threaten them.
The metallic clicking of hoofbeats on the gravel road drew 5-year-old Wilfred to the small pane window. He remembered all of it.
Yes.
Wilfred Little was Malcolm's older brother.
He was his best friend and confidant. He turned to Wilfred and, would discuss his doubts or his questions. That's one of the important reasons why Wilfred's so important in this story.
And to contribute important details such as the suspicious nature surrounding his father's death in a streetcar accident. Malcolm believed he was killed by the Klan.
The loss of his father had such a debilitating effect.
I think that time had a debilitating effect on everybody's character. I think what's really important about this book, too, is that not only is it about Malcolm and who he is and who he was with his family and his family that supported him, but the world he was born into.
Payne's writing introduces us to a Malcolm both brilliant and mischievous, and ultimately a leader.
That it is time for you and me to stand up for ourselves. It is time for you and me to see for ourselves. It is time for you and me to hear for ourselves. And it is time for you and me to fight for ourselves.
Do you think more people will see Malcolm's humanity through this book?
Yes, absolutely. People always saw him as fully formed and angry, but when they really look at him, they say, you know, it wasn't so much he was angry, he was explaining things to us that they didn't want to hear.
Les Payne saw Malcolm speak while he was in college at the University of Connecticut in 1963. His widow, Violet, remembers.
He describes the auditorium as being packed. And it was just not black people, it were both. At the end, he always says this, is that I went in as a Negro, but I came out as a black man.
Les Payne was an icon in his own right. A Vietnam veteran, a reporter and editor for New York's Newsday, a Pulitzer Prize winner. But his son Jamal says he was proudest of being a founding member of the National Association of Black Journalists.
He would say that journalism starts when you get somebody to tell you something that they probably shouldn't tell you, and you have to present it to the people and let them decide what they want to do for it.
And that was what Payne hoped to do on the subject of Malcolm's assassination.
He wanted to know exactly what happened, and he lays it out beautifully in this book. You know, everybody likes to say it was the Nation of Islam. It's larger than that. We learned that there was definitely, you know, involvement from many levels of organizations that are part of the government and also probably not part of the government that were interested in seeing Malcolm dead.
Payne died almost 3 years ago, leaving his daughter the job to edit his manuscript.
This won the National Book Award.
It did. And it's bittersweet. This was my father's life's work. It's so important that people read this book because they can understand how we got here. You know, in the context of who Malcolm was and what Malcolm was trying to do and the work that he was trying to do, and even in the work that my father's trying to do.
It's almost the tale of two men. This book is truly the tale of two men. Thank you for telling it.
Thank you.
A highly emotional process for Tamara and her family.
Yeah,
30 years to write this book.
It's always so difficult to try to find something new to write about someone who's been written about so much, but it sounds like Les did it.
Yeah, he did. And I left a lot of the details out of the story. I want people to read it. Yeah. But we should know this. 3 of Malcolm's daughters will be at a news conference today that we mentioned. Evidence will be presented to show that the NYPD and FBI conspired to undermine the legitimacy of the civil rights movement and its leaders. And we should note that the source of the assassination story in this book, in Les Payne's book, is not the source that Ben Crump and the other attorneys are putting forth.
Oh, very interesting.